Welcome to the show. Welcome to Through the Glass. It's been a minute. It's been several minutes since we've had the show on. So a couple things. One, it's been a minute. No real reason. I've just been a bit busy and lazy. There's an equation which equals not doing the podcast, but the show's back on, and I'm very thankful for that. And in particular, I want to give a shout out to a bunch of my friends and two people I don't even know who reached out or saw me out and about, who gave some love to the show and said that they were watching the show, and I'm thankful for that. So, as an artist, you don't do things for yourself. You want to have an impact, and you want people to enjoy it. Mostly yourself, but everyone else too. So I'm thankful to keep the ball rolling. In particular, I'm also thankful to have Genevieve Nelson, who is on audio and video. So we've had a personnel change. So Genevieve, you can't talk back, but hello, welcome aboard, and I'm thankful to have you helping with the show. So I appreciate you, Genevieve. On today's show, we have Arlan Feiles, musician, producer, technician as well. And we can get into all that. And hello, Arlan.
Hello. You have a wonderful way of sharing gratitude. I just love the tone of your voice. It's really lovely. Is that inappropriate? I have to check.
No, it's not inappropriate.
Okay,
we're still.
But no, I enjoyed listening to you give thanks. It was really endearing. So I'm glad to be here with you.
When my grandfather was on the first of his second deathbeds, shout out to Lou Passarella, my main man. When he was on the first of his two deathbeds down in the Carolinas, we went down there. Most of the cousins were like, we got to go down. Gramps might be going. And he was a real patriarch in many ways of the family. Just a stalwart of cool and a good symbol of how to work with kids and just being a kind heart. And his fucking wife was a boss, so he knew his place too. So
it's critical.
It's so critical.
It's so critical.
So a lot of wisdom from him. And we were down there in the Carolinas, and he was really like, seeing angels. And I was talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, Michael," he's like, "that voice, your voice." And I never understood what he meant, and I still don't. But anyway, what you just said reminded me of that. No one's ever complimented my singing voice, but something about my speaking voice.
Well, I'm not speaking to that, so no one still has. But you've got a lovely face for radio. Just wanted to share that with you as well.
Well, bad news, dog. This is an audio visual.
And visual.
This is an AV podcast.
It's a good thing I took a shower.
So I've known you for a long time.
Yeah, man.
It feels that way. Yet I know that I knew of you and had seen you play and had heard your name and all of this well before I knew you. My point with that is you've been in the game for a while. I respect that just flat out. Anyone who has stayed in the game, whatever your game is, whether it's, whatever your hobby or your game is. In this case, we're talking about being a creative person amidst life. Amidst family, amidst
art
children.
Versus life, yes.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like that.
It is like that.
How has the arc of art versus life sort of treated you over the last some odd decades?
Well, let me be grateful to my wife, who has not only enabled me, but encouraged me to find a way to do this all together. Because it's really an impossible task without support, unless, of course, you want to live alone and be alone, then all's easy. But with the family and with those kind of responsibilities, there's a bit of compartmentalization. You got to put your music hat on, and then you got to put your daddy hat on, and your husband hat. I mean, all these things are very real roles that have to be played well. I have to be as good a father as I am an artist. I have to be a better father than I am as an artist. One thing I'm I'm hoping to achieve one day. I'm working on. But it's truly my wife who is my enabler. She lets me spend time being an artist, and I take it very seriously. In fact, I take it dead seriously. I travel as an artist. I just spent the last week in Nashville, and I went with two guys from the music group that I'm involved with currently right now, my music distributor, and my label rep. And quite honestly, I was the only one with a family, and was the only one concerned about what was going on at home, and the guys, wanted to do this, and I'm like, look, I can't be here just to have a good time. I have to be here to get things done. I have to do my gigs. I have to prepare for them. I have to take them seriously. If I have downtime, I have to find ways to make those productive, because every moment I'm here, my family's sacrificing for my ability to do what I do, to that time that I get to be an artist. And so I take it very seriously, and no time is wasted. Look, yes, of course I have a good time. I enjoy playing music. I enjoy going to see music and discussing music and all those things. It's a privilege, and I'm very grateful for that. It's not a chore. My job is something I love, all aspects of it. But while I'm enjoying my job, my wife is taking on an extreme amount of extra burden and responsibility. My father-in-law, Rick, I'm so grateful he lives with us. He's able to take some of that burden off her while I'm gone. And also for my children who are short a parent for the time that I'm gone. And here I am, I just got back. I'm here for a week, and then I'm leaving on tour to the Netherlands for 2 weeks. And again, I'm asking my wife and my family to make a huge sacrifice so that I can go out and do what I love to do. And there's a tremendous amount of guilt. Truthfully, I mean, I feel so guilty. Any moment I'm actually having a good time. But at the same time, I feel like I'm doing it for them. So ultimately, my goal is to make their lives better by doing what I do. So it's a real challenge, that arc, in trying to marry those worlds and do justice and fairness to everybody involved. And those are my business partners as well as my family, which is ultimately the most important thing. So I'm so grateful that I have their support, because it's impossible to do without it. It's just, you can't do it.
Well, you brought up a good word, an enabler. So that has a that word has.
Oh, because she could disable me. Very quickly.
Katie's a boss.
She is a boss.
I've seen her in boss mode, mostly in very sweet, cool hangout mode, but I've seen glimpses of boss mode, and I resemble that remark as well.
Yes.
In my household, Julie's a boss for
She
sure.
is.
And you hit the nail on the head with the word enabler, which it has a funny connotation, it has a negative connotation many times, but in lives like ours, I think it's the first thing we think of. We think of the people around us who have, you said allowed. I don't want to seem like, we're like fucking puppy dogs. They're like, please, can I?
No,
but ultimately,
no,
you need a serious understanding structure around you to be an artist and to have that work in the framework of a family.
I should have used
children.
empowers, like she enables me, but she also empowers me.
No doubt.
Like a lot of the things that I do require her support emotionally, and the love that she has and faith that she has in what I do. So it's not just, enabling it's a little tricky, but truly she empowers me.
Well, I wanted to redefine that word. I wanted to, say like, that's kind of how it feels. And isn't that a good thing?
It's incredible.
And it comes from, so, props to you and many others. you've no doubt had this conversation with some of your probably more guy friends than not. Oh man, I wish I could. Oh man, how do you say that to your wife? Oh man, you're doing what? And so I have those wonderful people in my life too, and it always comes down to, well, like, kind of been the same person since we met. I wasn't trying to front like, oh, I'm gonna change or something, because I'm not sure who changes. Does anyone change? I'm trying to change these tiny people in my house, and I have
no
massive influence, yet minimal control.
Yeah,
I'm
zero
like,
control.
I can't influence them. Like, I'm gonna influence my wife. She's gonna influence me to be a different person.
As a father, you know well that our children are going to be whatever they decide they're going to be.
Yeah, certainly at this point. You'd think they were 30. They're all like 10 and under, right?
But even
all
at the
of
earliest age, when you think, oh, if I just sing to them and if I do all this stuff, they're going to be all the things that I want them to be.
Oh, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, the last thing, my eldest anyway, the last thing she wants to hear is me sing sometimes. I sing everything to my kids. I don't know if you do this. I walk around my house and I sing like things I want them to do.
Oh, no doubt.
What do you want to eat?
That's a Scotto tradition, singing our dialogue, especially like the benign, mundane
My
shit.
eldest, she's like, oh my God, Daddy. Layla, she will operetta back at me all night long. She's hysterical. It's the family opera every day.
I love that. Better dust that bookshelf. I'm fucking writing my name in the shelf.
I will in a minute.
Yeah, we got the same thing in our house,
it's
dude.
amazing. Yeah,
it's a beautiful tradition.
It's a joyful thing. But yeah. But yes, I mean, they're going to decide their fates as we did, and I'm grateful that they seem to admire my efforts artistically and not resent them yet. So we'll see, when we look back in another 10 years, if, God, I hope I never get that, oh, Dad, you were never around, but that wouldn't necessarily be true anyway. I mean, I'll tell you, this whole COVID thing has been like a disaster for us all. But I have managed to find all the silver linings. And I have felt great gratitude through the whole thing. That despite, the midst of the tragicness and the fear and all the things, that the gift that I know, so many of my friends I've suffered alone through this whole thing, which is just a nightmare to me. But I'm so grateful for all this time I got to spend with my kids and my wife and my family, home, together. The fact that they weren't in school and doing all the after-school activities, and that we were all together all the time, and I was helping them through their school day, and we were, spending like this time we would have never had the time in our whole lives. It's that kind of concentrated time. It's like going on family vacation for 2 years, almost 2 years that we were at home. And I am so grateful for that time to spend with my kids, because 95% of that time they would have been at school, at parties, at, all the things that kids do. Gymnastics and dance and all the things. Instead, they were home with me. And we did so many great things, and we got to know each other so well. And, that's the only way, I think, or for me, it was the only way to deal with all that, frustration and all the negative things that obviously this lockdown and, this whole COVID thing has brought to our communities and our lives. And amongst all that devastation and loss that so many people suffered, I feel I'm just incredibly, you should call this show Grateful. We're just going to talk about all the things we're grateful about, I think.
That's a high standard.
It is a very high standard, but
shit.
I think it's important. It's an important, exercise to really, kind of address those things.
Yeah,
frankly, in
it's
public.
The highest,
why not?
I think it's the highest quality in a person. I'm not perfect or anything close to perfect in that sport of gratitude, but I make sure I spend more time with people who are grateful than I do with people who are ungrateful, because I'm trying to keep my compass, this way. And I'm like, all right, well, those people, they might be fucked up in other ways, but their compass is in that respect is headed that way. And just recently, my wife, Julie, got me a compass for my birthday. Had a beautiful inscription on it. And of course, I'm so stupid. The first thing I do, I'm like, well, I'm not sure if this is accurate. So I'm like A-being it against like my quasi field, my field shit that I got just in case I'm in the field at some point. And
who knows when you end up in the field?
And then she's like, oh, I'm sure we can get it replaced or something. Then I'm like, it took me, this is how slow and dumb I am. So I'm not just dumb, I'm also really slow. It's like 2 days it took me to be like, oh wait, this is a beautiful symbol. Whether it actually is going to help me in the field, I'm probably not going to be carrying around this inscribed thing in the woods in some apocalyptic fucking context. And now it sits nicely on the dresser, and keeping our compass straight and surrounding ourselves with those kind of people is important. I had the same experience at home this last 2 years or so. I think our family grew closer.
Absolutely.
Like I felt like we were in good shape, but I feel like we're in better shape. So I'm very proud of that. I don't know how that happened, because certainly there was probably more like violent outbursts than ever. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe it is. I don't know. But with that's passion, right? So the other side of that coin is also love and forced togetherness in some ways. And we definitely grew tighter. I don't know what effect that's going to have on the kids as they grow up. I wanted nothing to do with my parents when I was young. Thought they were square. My dad was a hard ass. My mom was probably as cool as it could be, in a band, playing music, rehearsing at the house, and I was still probably like, that's lame. I
didn't know that about you.
I want to play drums.
My mother was a dental hygienist.
But your mother was also a rock star in many ways.
Well, she became a film producer. But
tell us about that. So I wanted to get to sort of like, so I just wanted to get away from all that stuff and ended up coming right back to all those things, as many children do to their parents' ways. But
sure.
How did your experience sort of shape where you're at now?
Well, I had a unique experience growing up. I guess, I don't know, for an LA kid, I grew up in Los Angeles, and like all my friends at school, their parents were like actors and actresses and rock stars, and it was weird. My dad was a pharmacist, he's retired, but he'll still work part-time. So he is a pharmacist, and my mother was a dental hygienist most of my childhood, and she went to go into the movie industry, and as everybody in LA ultimately eventually does. But I had a brother who faced a lot of difficulties growing up, and that created a lot of isolation for me, because my parents spent a great amount of energy and time dealing with my brother's needs. Obviously not his fault, but he required a lot of attention, and my parents felt that I didn't require that same level of attention, although I'd argue that I probably did. So I spent a lot of time listening to records and listening to music and exploring my artistic qualities, playing piano. My dad was a piano player. He taught me how to play, but a lot of my home experience was there was a lot of solitude, a lot of, okay, Arlan, go, hang out in your room. We have to deal with your brother. So, always a family dinner, but then it was go entertain yourself, because we have to deal with all these kind of things.
Did that make you, at times, obviously I'm sure there's been many evolutions, and I'm not trying to simplify any of them, but did that make you resentful or envious of your brother?
Oh, no, definitely not envious of my brother. I wouldn't want that kind of attention ultimately, but it did make me a bit resentful. And I think when my parents tried to like assert more control and attention about the things I started to do, I was like, nah. I was like, no. You don't get to now come in and decide that I need that attention or that, all those things. So I did assert myself quite at a young age and developed an independence that I stood fastly by. That became a real, a difficult point in my teen years, and also led me to leaving my home when I was just 17, because I felt like we couldn't coexist in the house any longer because I had my thing. I was doing my thing, And look, and not for 1 second should this be interpreted as me feeling unloved. I felt completely loved by my parents, and they were incredible. We're very, very close to this very day. I'm very grateful that they're still here, and they have become my greatest fans and a huge support also through the years. That, I think that my mother and I repaired a lot of our problems in my mid-20s. And since then, we've been best friends. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of things early on were difficult, but it would have been nice to have some lockdown time where we were forced to be together and kind of understand each other some, instead of, the days, So that's why I feel so grateful, because those days, we watch them now like fly by. And there are days that go by where I like, hey, good morning, good night, how was school today? Good. I mean, that's what you get, right? I mean, that's what I got today with my daughter Tessa. And those kind of things, that I think that's why, maybe I feel so grateful, because I'm just so glad to have that time, even the time that I could afford, not touring, not playing, not working, not running, not their mother being gone all day and then me being gone all night, which is kind of, how normal things are with our, dynamic, and with my business and my wife's business. As a principal of a school, she's gone all day. She doesn't get to take days off, and most people don't.
That's a tough gig.
It's a tough gig.
So I have a lot of educators in my family. I was a teacher for a bit as well. Mm-hmm. And being a principal, that's a tough gig. You have a lot of power in some ways and a lot of sway, and you're also the representative of that particular school, but ultimately you're beholden to a lot of other things if it's a standard public school system, where there's a board and all these other things. So it's a tough gig. How's she doing with that?
She's incredible. She's excelling. She's the principal of her school. It's an all autistic intake school, where the kids that are too disabled or too violent, even to belong in public schools, they send all their kids from from Monmouth County, Union County, all the surrounding counties. They send all the students that can't be in general population to her. And then she's got to oversee them, and be responsible for all of them. So she's got hundreds of kids that she sees after all day. So, again, more sacrifice for her, because she's got to come home and then deal with her own kids. I'm not there to, sometimes I'm not there to, to take that off her shoulders. So she's really a true superhero. I mean, I can't say it enough.
Working in schools is hardcore. So props to all folks,
all teachers
who are coming from the right place and working in a school. Some people are not coming from the right place. Y'all need to get out of there. But the vast majority, it's
teachers are good people. They really.
Well, we all remember, there'll always be a couple, right? I'm sure you have a few. So
of course.
Even if it wasn't a school teacher, what's one of your earliest mentors who you realized the weight of their mentorship?
Well, my high school music teacher, John Waddell, he's since passed, but he helped me get through high school in a way. I went to the LA County High School for the Arts. So right away it was an exceptional situation. It was a public school, but we spent our days doing music and, whatever or dance, whatever was your, focus art. And then, strike that. In the day, history, math, all those things. And then in the afternoon, we'd all go off to our music and dance and art. And I was having a difficult time kind of focusing in on the scholastic portion and stopped attending school pretty much completely. And my music teacher reached out to me and he said, look, the next time you feel like you need to leave school, come see me first. And I was like, okay. And I'd go see him first, and he'd go, come with me. And he'd put me in a little, the school was located on the campus of Cal State LA. So the music building had all like the rehearsal rooms you'd expect at a college university, piano, so there's all these little practice rooms. And he'd come with me and he'd take me into a practice room and he'd sit down and he'd go, this is a Mixolydian scale. Mixolydian? Yeah. Play with that for a while. Okay. Sit, learn the scale, start writing, start improvisational stuff.
Of course.
Trying to get it, trying to understand it. Next thing you know, hey, it's time for music, or it's time to go home, or whatever it was. Oh, okay. He kept me on campus. And I was very fortunate that my school kind of gave me some wiggle room. I don't know why, but I spent a lot of time with him, and I think he gave me a lot of focus and direction and knowledge, and things I needed to learn for my given career, which is still what it is now as it was then 30 years ago. And so he is somebody that I look back and go, wow, without his, kind of empathy and fairness, and not like that, I'm not getting whipped on the hand, get back to class, blah, blah, blah. But come here and let's learn something. Let's do something. And if we can learn and do something, then I will help you be here and stay in school and be, participate. And so for that, I was, very grateful to him.
Sure he saw something in you too.
Well, yeah, everybody at the school is talented. There's,
Well, yeah, dude, but there's talent, there's grit, there's the lethal combination of both of those things. But
yeah, I think he recognized my instability and fragility. A lot of kids were like, okay, go in, let's go to school, let's do the thing, I hope my kids are like that.
That's the special thing. But you'd only care if you saw that could that wasn't the representation of that person's potential. And it's pretty amazing how much impact human beings, teachers, can have on someone's life. And I've often tried to analyze the nature versus nurture.
Mm-hmm.
Am I because of my nature, or am I because of my nurture? Are you, is she, is he, or they, whomever? Clearly, there's no answer to that question. I think there's a nature that is endlessly susceptible to the nurture that borders it to the left and to the right. And right, so like if it wasn't for that teacher, like, would you be here?
I would have dropped out of school for sure. Now, whether I'd be here, I think there's probably a good chance that I'd, be doing what I do. It would have set me on a completely different path, and so who can say?
That's the fun of it. It's impossible to say.
I never would have gone on to. I went to Berklee School of Music for 3 semesters. I would have never gone. So I would have never met the guys in my band who were in Miami, and I would have never gone to Miami, and then I would have never, that band wouldn't have broken up, and I wouldn't have made a record in Florida and then ended up in New York City and then met my wife. I mean, it would have been a completely different path. So, yeah, I mean, keeping me in school and making sure that I graduated high school was critical to where I am now. I mean, would I still be successful? Would I be dead? I mean, God knows, but I'm happy where I'm at, so I can be grateful that he played a role in keeping me on this path, on the path that I'm on. And he, as much as anybody, you know, my parent or, you know, all the people we come across, he was, you know, certainly one of the bigger role players in keeping me on this path that has led me here where I'm at, you know, for better or worse, you know. I think for better, so.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I would not. What? I know I'm fortunate. I've known so many kick-ass musicians and artists. I've been around them my whole life, most of my life, not because of my own doing or my own magnet for that thing. Just good luck, dumb luck, and sort of what I was born into. And I think about the influences in my life, and I think about how they helped shape me. And when I started writing, however, then it's like, well, what am I trying to say? Writing, I don't have to tell you. I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to them right now. Anybody can write a pretty melody. Sorry, it's out there. It's been said. It's not incredibly difficult to write a pretty melody, although it takes some training and some know-how. And it's maybe a little bit more challenging to write some free verse that tells a story or create some imagery. But to write a song that's in a package, it's wrapped up. Yes, it's a good melody, whatever that means to the artist or to the listeners of the artist. But there's the story. What the fuck are you talking about? And there's some people whose voices are so pretty that they could just like yodel and say maybe a very general line, and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna cry, and you don't even know what's coming over you. You're right. Taken by it because it's produced beautiful. In such a way that's beautiful, and that's awesome. Writing a song and telling a story is a very specific thing. I think it goes back to, I'm not a music historian, but when I think of that, I think of folk music. Mm-hmm. And I know that what predated that was spirituals and other things. We can keep going back.
I mean, look, you'd have the town criers.
We can go back and back and back.
The old, they'd sing the news of the day back in the back.
Like we're doing Dust Your Freaking Bookshelf. Yeah. Not unlike that. We're like the house criers. We're the fucking domestic house criers. Oh my God. At this point. But I connect just based on my age and how I grew up and where I grew up and all those factors. I sort of place it in folk music, this idea of telling a story that's wrapped in a package. And I could think of, so many artists. You could think of Bob Dylan, of course, maybe the quintessential storyteller wrapped in a folk or a pop package. And when I think about your music and some of the things that attracted me to your music and which made me extra jazzed than I already would be to be involved in some of your music and to have had the opportunity and the privilege to play on some of it, you're telling stories. You're trying to say something. You're not stringing rhymes together, although I'm sure you've done it. You're not.
I'm a good rhymer. Although my wife argues with some of my rhyming techniques.
She pulls out the teacher.
Yeah, that's not a real rhyme.
Thesaurus.
I'm like, what do you mean it's called an imperfect rhyme? It's actually a thing.
Did you dangle a few participles and she called you out?
Oh my God. No, but You can rhyme, say, okay, actually, I just recorded a song where I can't seem to put together these words. I can't seem to find the courage. Like, so now that as a rhyme would probably bother my wife a little bit. And that's not like a traditional rhyme, but it rhymes just the same.
I get it. You don't have to
words,
fucking sell me.
I mean, it's the same thing, right? I mean,
I'm like,
am I wrong? God
I'm more like a partnership, whereas she's more like your audience. I think you should satisfy her needs.
Oh my God, that's it. That's not appropriate.
Oh, is this the second time we've
no.
inadvertently been in?
You said I have to satisfy her needs. That's all. It sounded funny.
I'm trying to speak for all the
all the wives out there.
No, maybe. Maybe I am. I do such a good job of it at home.
But
I mean,
no,
really.
look, no greater truth has been told. You know, we have to satisfy the needs of our wives in all respects. Mostly, love.
I know I better.
You better.
I could only speak to that. So this idea of storytelling.
Yes.
I want to stick with it.
My wife calls me the interjector as I interject. So that's my superhero power.
Well, it's a sweet name to the album you put out. That's like power trio, like, the interjector.
The interjector.
I feel like that's the power trio.
Okay, no,
album.
go before I ruin it. Go. Okay, back
it's too late. It's what do you mean go? It's happened.
Songwriting.
One of the things I've always liked about your songs is that they were saying something. So I wanted to pay attention to the story. Whether you were talking about a fictional character or a real life character, I like that you're trying to tell a story. And I think that also connects to some of your country tendencies, for lack of a better term. Come up, please say that better than I just
Americana, we call it these days.
All right, these days, everybody.
Yeah, well, because country took a turn.
But so long ago, though, didn't it?
It did. It took a turn. Well, what's interesting is that
how long ago was that?
So many wonderful,
on many decades.
So many wonderful roots music, or intrinsically American music. That the American music experience. The one that's not influenced by the Beatles and the Who and the British Invasion, but like the rooted in the American tradition of songwriting and storytelling, as you say, and all those things. What's interesting is that they've kind of finally found a genre. Before, if you played bluegrass, you were not country, but you were delegated kind of to this cultural thing. And so now there's a genre that they've called Americana that now has its own Grammy award. It's got its own organization, the Americana Music Awards that actually I was just at in Nashville last week, where you'll see everyone from Emmylou Harris, who we may think of as a traditional country artist, but today, how would Emmylou Harris fit in what we call modern country? So not so well, I think. So those kind of more roots and traditional traditions are now being marketed, for lack of a better word, as Americana, and it's given a home and a commercial home and a home for so many wonderful American musical artists who really exercise the tradition of American music and its culture, whether it be soul, blues, bluegrass, country also, even like rock. I mean, like even today, like an artist like Bob Dylan or, Tom Petty, or like, these are guys that would never fit in our modern pop construct. They would never get record deals. They would never survive. Those guys would actually be Americana artists today, as it were, in this field.
Yeah, I mean, simply by transcending any definition that someone would care to place on it.
Yeah. So there's a big storytelling aspect to the tradition of, American music, whether it be blues singers or folk singers.
Yeah, so maybe it's distilled down to the American storytelling tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And not just the stories, but the music tradition that's been passed down from, generationally speaking, that is still a viable, beautiful art form that continues to grow and evolve and to reach more and more people. Enough people where they had to actually give it a new genre name. I mean, I've been doing Americana music for 20 years, 30 years, and now they finally, in the last 10 years, it's actually become a legitimate genre. Even though if you go into if you're uploading your songs to YouTube and they ask you what genre, it's still not listed. Well, I'm not rock, I'm not pop, I'm not jazz, I'm not world music.
I was gonna fucking say world music.
You can't.
I hate it so much.
I still don't belong. They still haven't. It's still not in the drop down menu. That's gonna be that's gonna be the next big step. And I'm saying this right now. Whoever's listening, the powers that be, the drop down menu when you submit music to something and they ask you your genre, there's got to be, there's got to be more choices. We'll say.
100%. And it's a stupid fucking thing anyway, just to even put things in boxes.
Yeah.
Our musical history, at least in this country, has clearly transcended every single genre that's been placed on it. So when I hear the term modern country, first of all, I get a little verp. But after the verp,
after that,
immediately preceding the verp, is saying, well, that's not really country music. That's pop's grab on
a tradition,
the country thing. And you could say that the country thing is maybe a little fiddle, a little twangy guitar, and it might be some lyrical content about maybe
twang is
some,
key,
some drinks
for sure.
Maybe Jesus who gets thrown in there. Maybe there's a truck involved.
I think there's a religious aspect. I think white Christianity plays a big role, and even though it's starting to expand, let's not completely ignore that. But
no, I don't want to.
For the most part, it's a very white. It's kind of like the Senate or Congress. It's a very white place to be, very Christian place to be, and it's kind of taken traditions and commercialized them and found ways to reach out to youth that would otherwise, levitate towards pop, the other pop that's being, done out there.
Well, I think pop has smartly, whether I appreciate it or not, sort of grabbed all those things. It certainly grabbed hip hop at the get-go.
Oh, yeah.
And to great effect.
Well, pop music really doesn't exist without the whole, Black American experience. I mean, that's from the earliest forms of popular music.
No doubt. That's no doubt. But
that makes sense. Obviously, but I mean, you had the big pop vocalists of the 40s and the 50s, and that kind of wasn't, another, some of those very popular vocalists were not my favorites either, but I just like that idea that there's a kind of a traditional aspect of music that's being celebrated and organized, and communities being built around it that enables, again, here's the word enables, empowers, enables artists to make money doing the music that they love and grew up listening and cut their teeth on and is trying to be a part of a whole tradition experience, like we do with religion, like we do with all kinds of other aspects of our social experience. A lot of that is traditional. Like my family, We don't always, but we try to do Shabbat every Friday, not because we're religious, but because it's part of our traditional cultural experience and our family's heritage. So music is the same way. It's a cultural and heritage, experience, cultivation, growth, and evolution, and all these things that need a home, that need a viable avenue. So now your favorite bluegrass artist or favorite folk artist can now make records and have a community that's like open to receiving them and buying it, and making it not just something you see at the local cultural arts center or at the library or at the park on a Sunday afternoon, but it's really now become something where there's opportunity to reach a very vast audience.
Well, I get asked this all the time. Obviously, working at the studio and having artists established and emerging, asking, almost embarrassingly, like, how do I monetize this? And I don't have an answer to that question, by the way, as you could expect.
There's no answer.
So
put your head down.
Yeah. It
Play
seems
music.
like everybody's answer is different or just completely evasive, and that's totally fine, because I evade the answer as well, even though I've managed to make and not make money equally in my
the obvious
creative
answer is, if you're in this to make money, get out.
Clearly.
This is not.
Clearly.
I'm not saying you won't make money. I'm just saying if this is what's driving your cause here today, are you here in the studio are you trying to create a tool that is going to ultimately enrich you? You are already way off path. Go find that thing you love and let that love enrich you. And then if it brings you, money and all those things, great. But I would never encourage anybody who looks at music as a tool towards, stability or, financial comfort of any kind.
Certainly not stability.
And it's certainly not.
I think you have
right.
a better chance of making money than finding stability.
That is, in fact, the more money you make, the less stability you will have.
That's so true. I've seen it, America. Or internet,
so, I mean, look, I know that the lure of music, especially as a young child, is, well, for me, in my experience, I'll say girls. That was the first, reason why I, loved performing, not necessarily making music, but performing. And then, fame, right? I mean, and with fame comes the riches and all this stuff, and and it's misleading because, the truth is that making music and having a career in music, and if you can ask anybody, is a very severely difficult endeavor, even at the highest levels. It's the touring and the traveling and the interviews and it is a very difficult endeavor. And so you have to love it, not only because you won't make riches, but you have to love it even more, just in case you're successful. I mean, seriously. I mean,
that's a good point.
Because if you don't love it and you're successful at it, you'll be miserable. I mean,
we see that all the time.
And we do. We see,
right? There's been so many
disillusioned,
famous
people.
disillusioned people, and you could split then famous into, at least what I perceive, it's just my optic, super talented and not super talented. So obviously people can become famous for a million different reasons, right? But it was always a drag, and it's still a drag to see someone who's extremely talented is getting accolades and is like fucking depressed. But I mean, there's nothing you could do about that. I mean, let's be honest. Our world, the artistic world, is ripe with instability, social, mental. Let's just be honest, right? So it's like you're always dealing with it's rare when you're not dealing with an interesting type. And we say it here at the studio, and I'm sure you have the same experience. Like
here at the studio, I do.
You'll work with someone and you're like, man, that person was like super normal. What's wrong? Like that's like you're almost thrown off when someone's got it all together or seemingly has it together. So our whole world, the ground is built on a very wacky, feelings based place.
Right.
It's like a shaky chakra.
Right. Well, there's no spreadsheet that says this is working. I mean, I guess ultimately, but like on, in the creative zone here in the studio, there's no quantifying success financially. This is all like, pre-IPO. Like this is all like, experimental. It's all, will this work? Every record is kind of like a brand new company that may or may not find legs.
That's right.
And you may be and look, you're only as adored and celebrated as much as the success of your last effort. And as artists, we step back for years at a time sometimes and kind of wait for that cycle to come back around where people are now reinterested in what you're doing, because you can overexpose yourself. You can do too much. You could be around too much. You can, make a record that's overexposed. You can make a record that's not exposed enough. There's so many different directions.
George Harrison wrote about that, right, on Handle Me With Care.
Yeah. There's, and that's actually a really important lesson on the local level, especially because what happens is that young artists, they kind of come into their own, 20, 21, now they're playing in the clubs, and now suddenly, now they're a local favorite. Now they're playing 3-4 nights a week in all the local bars. But the hard part is when you've done that too much. And now there's a whole nother group of young people coming up, and they're suddenly more interesting. And they're suddenly, now, what's your next move? And oftentimes that move is to disappear, just lay back. I mean, if you think about it, even like our biggest legends in music, they take long periods of time off, whether it be, Elton John or Paul McCartney or whatever. They have a hit record and they're on the front pages for a month or two, right? And then it's done. Record sales decline steadily as time passes. They obviously huge artists and huge records, continue to sell, but it declines, and then you go like, okay, now I got to step back and I got to let these artists have their sunshine and get their accolades and get their reviews. And you got to sit at home and plan your next big release and hope you get that next 2 months or 3 months of attention, adulation, all the things that, fill your heart and make you feel good and all those things. But a lot of music is downtime, going back to the drawing board, getting out of the public eye and being okay with that. I think a lot of artists struggle with that kind of up and down and that ebb and flow and that of being irrelevant and then being relevant again, and sometimes if you feel irrelevant too long, guys get out of the game or guys stop, or it takes an emotional toll. Why aren't they interested in me any longer or whatever? But the biggest artists they experience the same thing. There's no constant, and it may feel that way when you're like just getting started. You get all this incredible, when you're 20, a year feels like a lifetime. When you get a little older, a year is like a week. That shit doesn't sustain you. So you have to kind of prepare yourself to step back and let others step forward, and then find your time and your moment where you can kind of go, okay, well, I'm ready to, step back in and see what happens. And you know what? Sometimes nobody gives a shit.
Well, that's faith in the process.
And sometimes they're ready again for you. And sometimes
you have to have faith. Ultimately, what we're talking about is faith, not a religious faith, but a sort of a spiritual nonetheless, but in the in who you are and why you're here and why you have the feelings that you have, and why you can't be someone different.
No.
So you have to have a lot of faith in that.
And you got to keep expanding. You got to keep looking out. You got to travel away from home. You got to keep doing the things. That's why artists tour the world over the course of 2 years, because they can sustain that. Like, all those people all along the line haven't seen them for 2 years. So it's like a fresh dose of energy on all those different places. So you hit different, that's why artists spend their lives on the road. And it takes them a year or two. They're playing the PNC, and we won't see them for 2 years, but they've been out playing all the other venues all over the world because it's all fresh to each one of those venues. But we saw it, and now we don't need to see that artist again for a year, for 2 years. 5 years, whatever it is, that's why it's, if you don't love it and you're successful, it can be as challenging as, just not even getting there.
Patience, grit, rinse, repeat. Patience, grit, rinse, repeat. Good advice, man. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Arlan Feiles, if you don't know his music, what's the best quick link or links where people can just find your shit and check it out?
Well, if you know how to spell my name, you can find me anywhere. It's ArlanFeiles, and of course I'm present on all social media as we need be, and YouTube channel, and my website arlanfeilesmusic.com. And all your, streaming and downloading, musical, outfits out there, you'll find me. I'll be the only Arlan Feiles, I promise.
Yeah, he doesn't have to put a number in front of his name for his Gmail
Arlan Feiles 00159.
No, he's got it dialed in. So I recommend you check out Arlan Feiles' music. I like it. Judge for yourself. But this is a real artist. This is a real storyteller, and for me, a real friend. So check out his music, will you? And all his links will be in the description below in this episode of Through the Glass. Thanks, Arlan.
Thank you. Allow me to be grateful one more time, and to thank you for having me tonight. And it's always a joy spending time with you personally and in this new setting. And I appreciate you letting me tell my story, and thank you so much.
Likewise, brother. See ya.